and live.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. Okay, this is Glenn Richards, Chair of the Newburyport Historical Commission. We're going to allow just about another minute or so for folks to get joined into the Zoom call, and then we will officially call the meeting to order. Let's see. Good. Did I see it? Excellent. I see Chris has joined. So did he join as a panelist, or did you have to promote him, Caitlin?
I just promoted him to
Okay.
come on.
All righty. Well, everyone seems to be here. Let's see. We have some attendees as well. So let's officially start the meeting. So this is the welcome, one and all, to the meeting of the Newburyport Historical Commission for the 23rd of March, 2023. Please note that this proceeding, like all virtual city meetings, is being recorded. We'll start off with a roll call of the commissioners in alphabetical order. That would be Andrew Bernhardt. If you could just
I'm here.
Yep, say something so we know your audio is working.
I'm here.
Biff, yep, heard you, Andrew. Thank you. Biff Bouse.
I'm here.
Okay, Mark Sandrone. Do we have Mark? No, don't hear Mark.
Not
Okay,
seeing him at the moment.
Okay, Christopher Fay.
Here.
Okay, Joe Morgan.
Here.
Okay, and Chris Sawtell, our newest member.
I'm here.
Thank you, Chris. And Glenn Richards, chair, speaking. So Caitlin, I'm going to move Mark down to the absent, and we'll see if he shows up in the next couple of minutes to join. Okay, so we have a pretty full schedule, so we're going to try to nip right along. Just general introductory remarks are only that if you're new to these Zoom meetings, you'll be able to see the person speaking at the time. If they have the commissioners generally have their video enabled and their audio. The public does not have video enabled, and their audio is only enabled when they have the floor. And I'll explain the rules for a public comment period if and when we get to one of those. So first item on the agenda, which you should see in the Zoom meeting, and is a demo delay application for 9 Chapel Street. And the architect there is John Sava, I believe, is going to talk to that. Let's see, do I see? Well, I see 660983 #. Is that by any chance, Mr. Sava, or you here, John?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we heard. Yep, now we do.
All right.
You're a little
good.
fuzzy, but we do hear you.
All right. I apologize for that.
All right, so John, just 1 second. So this is just very briefest of introductions, just that this is the house on 9 Chapel Street, where a fairly large addition is proposed. Needs review by both this commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals for some zoning variations
Correct.
and so on. And I'll let Mr. Sava, the architect, go over the his presentation explaining about the house and what he plans to do. But before, actually, just for everyone's review, especially since we've got a very new member, I just want to quickly review what the procedure is here. For a demolition delay, we first have to determine into which of 3 categories the structure is going to fall. It's either not historically significant, or it's historically significant and considered for preservation, or third, it could be historically significant but not considered for preservation. Now, the only time, only if this is determined to be historically significant and considered for preservation, if that's the case, we hold a public hearing to review the proposed demolition plan. That's, John, where you would get into what it is you plan to do. Up until that point, we're mainly concerned with the current existing structure and its historical significance or lack thereof. So anyway, so we do that demo plan review if we get to that point, and after that, there's a vote on whether it's preferably preserved. If it is preferably preserved, there's a 1-year demo delay. If not, the plans may proceed. And even as sometimes, in fact, maybe often happens, the demo delay will be imposed because it's preferably preserved, but there may be further discussion and a vote on approving the plans. And that if that passes, the demolition delay is then lifted and the applicant can proceed. I hope that's pretty clear. I know most of you should have the nice demolition delay process flow chart, which is very helpful in this. So having said all that, hope I didn't confuse anyone there. I'll turn it over to, it's John, right? John Sava?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
to tell us about the structure and why you, so again, repeating a little bit here, John, the first step is we just need to determine if it's historically significant or not, and to be considered for preservation. So go ahead.
Correct. If you don't mind, I will give you a brief history of our application. And I hope I'm coming through fairly clear with this speaker.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
All right. Dear Chairman Richards, the house at 9 Chapel Street in its original form was a small Italianate two-story structure with corner posts, lath and plaster interior finish, fireplace, and an entrance door facing Chapel Street. The original street facade had 2 fairly large double-hung windows on the upper floor with matching windows on the first floor and an offset entrance balancing off this westerly elevation. The cards show that the house was built in 1850 and consisted of a main house and a 1-story addition in the rear. This is a very popular house configuration seen all over the North Shore with varying window mullion patterns from 6/6 to 2/2, 2/1, etc. Our choice for the original house is a 2/1 double hung configuration. Unfortunately, the house has had some major alterations performed in 1970 when the back building received a roof demo and a subsequent 2nd-story addition. In 1975, the front entrance door was blocked in, leaving the original window placement off-centered without that typical balancing element, the front door. It was at this time that all the windows were shortened and replaced with smaller 2 foot by 2 foot 9 vinyl replacement units and a bay window on the southerly elevation. There are a few larger double hung units that remain in their original location, but the openings were made somewhat smaller widthwise to accommodate a stock vinyl unit, would be my guess. It was at this point that the existing wood clapboards were covered with vinyl clapboard siding, vinyl fascia, eaves, rakes, and corners. The owner's design intent is to make the existing Chapel Street facade balanced based on viewing countless numbers of various similar 20-foot wide homes with gable ends facing the street. The proposed Chapel Street elevation with its symmetrical 2/2 units and a smaller peak window, in my mind, satisfy the 1850s style. All the existing altered windows will be brought back to the larger double hung proportions, slightly larger but to code for bedrooms. New cementitious clapboard siding will match the 4-inch to weather exposure, and the same material will be used for trim, attempting to match the original proportions. The new addition will be respectful of the original house, using the same quiet detailing, making sure that the garage is a smaller structure, not overshadowing the main house, as will be the front entry and glass second floor connecting link. The new white clapboards with black window frames, wood carriage house garage doors, and similar wood entries should make this house a nice addition to Chapel Street, I hope. In conclusion, the attached drawings and photographs will show that the alterations done by others in an attempt to modernize their house in an honest and frugal manner, resulting in a much more appropriate and comfortable house for their family, is not right for the penny household, hence the restoration and addition. Again, we feel that this design will add to the street vernacular, and we're hoping that the Historical Commission will also agree.
All right. Thank you, John. Can you see the presentation that
Yes, I can.
Caitlin is, okay. Do you want to say anything? I know you included some context photos of the neighborhood and the exteriors and so forth. Do you want to talk us through those really briefly?
I can do that briefly. The first photograph on the left shows the front of the house, and you can see that something is missing. And it's the entrance, which would have balanced things off. But all the upper windows and even the lower windows have just been closed in. You can see also next to that, the smaller windows.
Mhm.
And they're pretty much everywhere. Caitlin, is there another photo that we can show?
Yeah, there's a couple of pages of
Yeah, and
context.
there's
photos.
the street views.
Mhm.
Um,
What was
again-
on slide 4, Caitlin? I think that one got jumped over somehow.
Okay, yeah, that was my photos of the neighboring, right across the street, right next door. You can see that, there's varying types of architecture on the street, from Italianate to Victorian to, farmhouse stuff. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, the houses are pretty nicely done.
Yeah, an eclectic mix of those. Several do look like the same vintage as this place, but updated and modified over the years.
Exactly.
Okay, what's on 5 and 6, Caitlin? Anything? Okay, just exterior.
Same thing.
Okay, yep. All right. And lastly, 7. Okay, yeah. And can you go back to 7 for a second? So, because I think in your elevation that we were looking at earlier, you can see it's that what you're calling the south facing side is the long side. I guess that's where the
Right.
current entrance or entrances are.
Correct.
Okay.
And the bay window was added along with all
Right.
the rest of the smaller windows.
Right. Yeah. The fenestration's
Right there.
considerably modified. I think slide 8 is just showing that it is listed. And yeah, go to slide 8, Caitlin, please. Interestingly, it's an MC is the notation there for status. The M, I think, is
Modified.
yeah, right. It's contributing but modified or secondary, whatever. It's even back when this was done, which would have been late 70s, early 80s, it was altered, and so it's not what anyone would consider a pure example of that
Above ground
style.
pool was added, so.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, very good. So let me turn it over to my fellow commissioners to see if anyone has any questions for you. And if you do, you can either just speak up, or I'll look for raised hands if you want to do it that way.
Okay.
It's very quiet.
I'm here, yeah.
Now, the first decision, we could take a vote as to, well, there's 2 possibilities. We could vote for, there could be a motion, the house is historically significant, in which case a yes vote would indicate you believe it is. A second vote would indicate that in your, that you feel that it is not historically significant. So that would.
Chair, this is Joe Morgan. I
Yes.
move that that 9 Chapel should be should be considered historically significant.
Okay, so I'll make a note of this. So that's
And
Joe
I
Morgan.
can second that.
All right, that sounded like Biff.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So the motion is that the structure is historically significant. If you feel it is, that's a yes vote. If you feel it is not, that would be a no or nay vote. So Mr. Bernhardt, what's your vote on that? Did we lose? I know a lot
Yes.
of you. Okay.
Yeah.
You're voting yes. Okay. Mr. Baus, Biff Baus.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sandrone is not here. I'll have to get him out of there. Chris Fay.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Chris Sartell.
I vote yes.
Okay. And I even need to vote. I'm sitting on the fence in this one. I have mixed feelings about it, but since my vote wouldn't matter in this case anyway, I guess I can go along with the crowd here. I can explain as when we take this next vote. So next we have to determine whether it is considered for preservation. So the 2 typical reasons for not considering it for preservation is when there's been already so much change in nature of the character and so forth that it's no longer making a significant contribution as it is, or it's in such a deteriorated condition that it can't be saved. I think we can safely say that this particular structure doesn't quite fall into that category. Anyone have any? I'd like to hear from you guys as to your thinking on this, and then we can move to that, a vote on that motion. As to whether it's now, and I should also clarify that if it is preferably preserved, then we go on to the demo plan review, we review the plans and so on. If we feel it is not preferably preserved, then that would be the end of the matter. So anyone have any comments? I see, Biff, I see your hand up. What are you thinking?
I think that you know, I think I know where you're coming from, is that, you know, the removal of that side hall entrance is pretty disruptive to the original design. But I do think that because the arrangement of the windows, all the spacing and everything is still there, the scaling of that side hall is still all really there. It's just a matter of replacing the details. I think this thing is definitely worth preserving and trying to get back to as closer at least to the proportions that would be appropriate for this structure.
All right, thanks. And that brings me to a question, and I see, Andrew, your hand is up too, though. Just let me ask a quick question of Mr. Sava. John, was between yourself and the owner / client or developer, whatever it is, was there any discussion of the possibility of restoring an entrance to the front as the house would originally have had, or would that be completely incompatible with interior plans?
Yeah, it's pretty much incompatible with our floor plan, and it was incompatible to the people that owned the house originally, because all the action is really towards the back. So someone would, which is where the kitchen is,
Mhm.
would have to travel the entire length of the house in order to get there. And it didn't make any sense at that time for them, and I don't think it does now. What you'll see later in the drawings that we've brought back the front of the building to a sort of much more symmetrical, much more appropriate to the age of the building after
Okay.
exhaustive studies.
Okay.
Looking at every single house I could see between here and Lord knows where, and wall details. Yeah, that would really kind of disrupt the house quite a bit. It would be an entrance that just flat out wouldn't get
Right.
used.
Okay, how about, okay, Andrew, I see your hand. What did you want to say?
Yeah, I'm not leaning towards preservation. I'm pleased with what the architect is saying, but I'm just wondering, is it our place to make it a requirement on this particular structure? Because I don't see it being worth preserving, and I just don't see it.
It's hard to catch the very last bit of what you're saying there. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, Andrew. I'm gonna try to...
As a group, if we see a house like this and the architect is leaning towards doing the right thing, which it sounds like he is, I think he's going up and beyond what our place is to say that this structure is worth preservation.
Oh, well, okay, I think I can respond to that, Andrew. The way I would put it is that this could very well fall into that. A lot of the things that come before this board fall into this category where the structure is deemed to be preferably preserved because we want to have we feel that it's we don't want to just demolish it or have no hand or not have to say that it's a throwaway, right? However, the owner or architect or whomever has presented plans that either as is or with maybe slight modifications are perfectly acceptable. And so the only way we get to actually even talking about the plans was if we say it's preferably preserved. That doesn't mean they can't go forward. It just means that we take a look at the plans, and we may all feel pretty much as you just expressed, Andrew, that yeah, you know what? this isn't a restoration in the sense of
Right.
trying to make it look like it did in 1860. However, it's a big improvement because of X, Y, and Z, or not, and therefore we like the plans, or we like the plan except for this one thing. If you could come back with an improvement in some particular area, then we'd take another look at it. So there's a number of paths that can take. If we vote that it's preferably preserved, and we then take a look at the plans and so forth, we might, the board can certainly vote that that to approve the plans as submitted, and it can go, or with some conditions that in the ordinance they're referred to as quote conditions, which basically means suggestions or things that I'll give you a quick example. There might be and I think this has come up where the plans had let's say we liked everything except there was a dormer, let's say, that was really objectionable because it disturbed the proportions, the look of the street facing view, blah, blah, blah. And the applicant was willing to come back with essentially the same plan, only without the dormer, and they got approval, and then they went on their merry way. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. All right, so Joe or Chris, the other, either of the Chris's, any comments or thoughts?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. All right. So the next vote, 1B in the flow chart is it considered for preservation or not? Is the way it's worded. So we've already decided it's historically significant. So the appropriate motion would be the structure is historically significant and considered for preservation. Does the chair hear such a motion?
I will move that 9 Chapel Street is historically significant and is preferably preserved.
That sounded like Mr. Morgan. Okay.
Sure.
Is there a second for that?
Second,
I didn't catch who that was.
that's Chris Sawtell, second.
Chris Sawtell. Okay, thank you, Chris. And we'll have you formally introduce yourself in a minute, Chris, so people can see who you are. Okay, so just so everyone's clear, the motion is that it's historically significant and preferably preserved, so that if an affirmative vote means yes, you agree, and we would move on to a review of the demo plans or plans, period. If a no vote means it's not considered for preservation, and we don't need to go any further. Okay, so given that, Andrew, what's your vote?
I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay, Biff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan?
No.
Okay. Chris Sawtell?
I vote yes.
Okay. And the chair? I'm gonna vote yes, so we can take a look at the plans and talk about that. All right, so where we are now is that it's historically significant and considered for preservation. So what we'll do is, John, I'll have you go through your proposed plans for both what's being demolished and what's being built. And there'll be a public comment period for if there's members of the public that have want to comment on that, and then the board will consider it and we'll take the vote on whether it's the term they use in the ordinance is preferably preserved or not. That would decide whether the demo delay is imposed or not. So would you like to tell us about the I'll just call it the plans rather than, even though it's technically a demo plan review.
Right, I would be happy to. In actuality, the only demo that we're doing is of the rear of the building. And I think one of my sheets shows the amount of square footage that it's going to be taking, which is quite a bit less than 25%.
Mhm.
And the real question has to do with whether it's demo or not. Someone closed in the openings of all the windows, and we want to bring those back to the
Mhm.
double hung, that the proportions that really want to work with the house. So you can't see that on this
Right.
site plan, but the addition obviously is in the beige color.
Did you have any discussion with what why am I blanking on her name? The zoning administrator there, Jennifer
Well,
Blanchet.
absolutely. And she and Caitlin were very, very helpful
Okay.
in putting together the package that you.
Okay, so I'm going to guess that even if you include that relatively small square footage of that window framing demo, that it's still considerably less than 25%. Would that be
That's
right?
what she said, yes.
Okay, yeah,
yes.
that's not a surprise. Okay, go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
So I think the next, elevation number 10, that's the rear. And that shows pretty much the fact that we're not doing anything there except bringing back the windows that were there.
I see. So
and-
so these windows open, I'm sorry, they look like they've been enlarged mostly vertically, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple egress windows that we need for code, but generally speaking,
Mhm.
that's what we're doing, is making, we're lowering the units again. We're demoing their increase, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
So that's
okay.
that northerly elevation, and you can see a little bit of the addition on the left. We tried to
Right.
differentiate where the addition
Mhm.
is attaching to the new house. You just see a
Right.
corner of it there.
Right.
Okay, and that's the south-facing elevation.
So this is like from the driveway side.
That would be
correct.
looking,
In
Yeah,
other words,
the-
Chapel Street is on the left in this.
Chapel Street is on the left, right?
Right.
That's sort of facing southerly.
Right.
And you can see the original building on the left where the dimensions are.
Mhm.
We got rid of the bay window, which just didn't
Mhm.
work very well at all. And we doubled up with some more traditional windows. And then, the next one is the front elevation. Oh, okay, no, yeah, that's the east.
Yeah, this is, so this is what you would see looking from Chapel Street, sort of down the driveway or from the front.
No, this is actually looking
Oh, I'm sorry, the
at it from
back.
a
The
backyard.
back, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Karen,
looking
that's right.
at the backyard with his French doors out to a patio. And the right side of the house is the original house.
Right.
And again, we kind of altered that a little bit, but just because of program needs. Yeah, and then that's the front of the house.
Right.
And that's the elevation that we really like. I
Mhm.
mean, that's the way this house should look if you didn't have an entrance off of Chapel Street. You could see there's hundreds of houses that have that gable end.
Right.
And then beyond that is the connecting link to the house, set back quite a bit. The heights of the house are higher than the additions, just so that takes center stage.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell from here. I was thinking about this when talking to someone else, and how in these elevations, it's a flattened, sort of perspective. So it's a little misleading because that, do you know about how many feet the right-hand side is set back from the,
Well, could we jump to a number 15?
oh, okay, yeah, oh, rendering. Okay, that's nice.
Yeah. So this is what I feel really kind of works with the house. I come from a house that's 1740, so I kind of have a feel for some of these. But they're just modern people in an old house, and
Right.
I think this sort of works. What this rendering doesn't show is the adding of the double unit that we talked about. There's only one window showing there, but on the
not sure.
stairs, as you enter into the front door, that window on the left as you're walking towards the front door, that's actually a double window.
Oh, I
But-
see.
Yeah,
I see.
where the
Yeah, I think the elevation had it correctly,
the
right?
the elevation had it
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So this is a house. It's sort of I feel a quiet addition. It's white, and the trim works. The landscaping should work and help the house. The back of the house is modern, but and the connecting link, I tried to make that link as light as possible with windows, you sort of look through that into the backyard. There's windows just like that in the upper connector. So there's some transparency in the house.
Anticipating a question I had, and my peers might as well. It seemed an odd choice of roof to have that standing seam metal roofing. Was there a reason for that particular choice?
Yeah, it was a requirement of the clients that they want a trouble-free roof. And I've put metal roofs on many, many houses. And if you drive around into New Hampshire and every other place,
Right.
you do see metal roofs on a lot of these houses for those reasons.
Okay, yeah, and is that
it's that color too. It's not going to be red. You're not going to be able to get pancakes there. And it's a quiet, again, a tone,
Okay.
like a gunmetal gray or something.
right? All right. All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think so. As I said, I live in Newburyport, pretty sensitive to this area. I've done a lot of truly historical houses significantly, bottom of Bromfield, number 7 Bromfield. But this house, I think we're helping it out as best we can after it was kind of butchered a little bit.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. So
Yes.
friends on the board, anyone have any thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry. Before we'll go to public comment, but first, anyone have any quick questions for John about anything he's just covered? Okay, if not, I'll officially open a public comment period. So the way this works is if you would like to make a comment about this, it doesn't matter if it's pro, con, or indifferent, any kind of public comment. The way you do that is use the facility within the Zoom meeting controls to raise your hand. That's how we know you want to say something. And when you hear that we recognize you, that will be, we will enable your audio, and you will also need to unmute yourself on your computer or a phone or whatever you're using so that you can speak. And you'll be, we'll announce your name. So as with any public meeting, just state your name and address and make your comment. Try to be fairly brief. All right, so we'll officially open the public comment period. So again, looking for any raised hands among the attendees. And I'll give a few seconds for people in case they need to figure out how to do that. Okay, and the time it takes me to have a sip of my coffee there, I'm not seeing any raised hands. So I will close the public comment period and go to my fellow commissioners. Does anyone have any comments or questions for, actually, what we usually just go around. I can see, I'll shift up the order a little bit. Let's see, Biff, any thoughts or comments?
Yeah. I think what I'm reacting to first is as I mentioned before, just the window placement or the fenestration is what I liked about the building. And although I like that this has now been made sort of symmetric, that's not what these side hall styles were made. And I understand clients' needs to, well, this entrance in the front doesn't make sense because we all live back in the kitchen and whatever. But to me, it's like, well, then if that's your goal, then maybe this isn't the house for you. I don't know. To me, it's like the idea of these houses is they're very modest homes, and I appreciate the work that's been put in this, but it feels like it's like tripled or quadrupled in size. It doesn't feel. I think it looks better than what's there, but I think it and modern, but I don't think it at all feels like what it is, which is a very modest, like, worker's home. It doesn't
Okay.
feel like that to me. And I see the elements put in there, and it feels like it's in kind of in place, like it feels very seaside. But otherwise, I think it's really kind of ignoring its past and quite, especially with like the roof that you brought up, but changing that window fenestration, you know, and with the black frames, which is this really trendy thing right now that I'm seeing, that we see a lot of. And you know, I have my opinions about it. I don't think it's historically appropriate always. But I mean, I think that my biggest frustration with this is just that it doesn't feel at all like what it was. And even though that the current styling of it isn't great with that bay window, I agree that's kind of strange. But at least it has that scale and kind of feeling of a, you know, like a middle class workers family house. And this feels like almost like a suburban, you know, with the double door garages. I mean, to me, I see that more than I see the entrance and that original, you know, front of the building.
Okay. Thanks, Biff. And yeah, I know what you mean. I just a quick comment from me is that I was a little confused at first because John, in your email or in your memo, you talked about restoring the more symmetrical thing to the front. I wonder if there was any, but it is made symmetrical again, but the way you've chose to do that. Well, let me ask you this: the windows that are toward the right-hand side, are
Mhm.
those in the same place where the door was, or was it just you know, put in where it would be symmetrical with the existing window on the left side?
I don't quite catch you, but the,
Okay,
you mean
originally
as
there
you're
were
walking up the stairs to the
no,
front door?
no, I'm sorry. No, just look at the old part of the house here, right?
Mhm.
There's two windows on the first floor and the second floor. The two windows, it used to be, let's just think about the first floor. The two windows were off to the, like one was about in the middle and the other one was to the left, and there was a door that was removed, right?
Correct, yes. It was
So
removed. Oh,
right. Was there that window that is now on the right? Is that where the door was going to use that framed opening that's been kind of patched up, or is it just you know, a new location?
no, it's actually a new location. All these are new locations because we're altering the heights of them, and there's just different uses that are happening in this house than that happened in 1860.
I see.
I mean, I think putting an entrance in that area because
Right.
it was done, in 1860. It was boarded up in
Yeah.
1970.
Yeah. Okay. Was there any did anyone consider doing three windows so that the two windows could
I
be?
did a study actually on three
Uh-huh.
windows. And it looked okay.
Mhm.
It looked okay. I had to move all the windows over a tad so that the ones in below, there'd be one, equally spaced. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
And it did work because the clients, were kind of looking for more light
Mhm.
to come in to that area, which was going to be a den office area.
Mhm.
And I did do a study with three windows. I didn't like it as much. And one of the things that occurred to me was that I wonder what's behind, I don't want your voting have anything to do with that, but, I'm wondering what's behind the vinyl. If this is an Italianate, it's not, it's like phase one Italianate, it's not phase two, which is very ornate. But I was just wondering if there's a frieze board, in that area, if there's something that might go along where the rakes are that would break that up a little bit. But I don't know that yet, and we might just try to do that if it looks like there was something there that was there. If you know what I'm saying.
You're talking about like maybe up along where the eave height? something
Yeah,
up there.
because if you look at some of the Italianate houses there's a frieze board that ornate that would go, pretty much underneath that top window.
Right.
That centered window, which does things to proportionate the
I see what you mean. Yeah.
the house somewhat.
Yeah. I think I know what you mean. Yeah, sometimes they're scalloped or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Which would help the house.
Okay. Joe, any comments from you? Or thoughts?
Well, I voted, I didn't think it was worth preserving. It's historic by definition, but I think it's been too altered. And I don't think there's enough characteristic detail there. Like the architect just said, there's no real ornament here or anything that would, I don't think that would really require us to exercise some sort of preservation commentary on it.
Yeah.
So I have nothing more to say. I
Okay.
think it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew Bernhard, how about you? Any thoughts or feelings? Opinions?
Now I wish I
Impressions?
changed my vote back to no, not preserving. I mean, I don't see this as an historic structure at all.
Okay. So,
And
would if the flip side of that, Andrew, so would it be your from your view of the historical nature of the existing house, sounds like you're feeling that what's proposed here, what we're looking at right now on the screen, would either A, be perfectly fine or an improvement.
I think it's an improvement. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. How about you, Chris? Any thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the other Chris, but you wouldn't
Oh,
know that.
sorry.
It's all right. Go ahead, Chris. Tell.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in.
That's quite
Chris
all right.
Franson. Yeah, I've looked at the house as it stands now, and I'm looking at the concept of it. And when I voted that it's historically significant, it's because there's just a certain amount of houses built in that time in Newburyport. It's not like like stars in the sky. If there's millions of them, we can just take them down and everything's going to be fine. I think every house that's over 100 years should definitely be considered for preservation, despite what's happened to it. However, this like somebody said, this house has been butchered over the last 50 years or so, with no detail whatsoever left on it. Nothing. Even the door is gone. But I think that the fact that it still stands there with an addition that's not half the building, not 3/4 of the building, it's just sitting on the corner, and this house is still standing, is I think a good thing, considering what it looks like now. And I think this is kind of an improvement. I mean, I'm not crazy about changing around window placements and things, but I think in this case, being that it's been altered so much long ago, that this does look good. It does. So I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of on the fence about this, because I mean, if I wanted to be a real preservation, I'd say, no, let's get that door. Let's do all this. But, the details are gone. And, but the house is there, though. It's not being demoed. It's not gone forever. It's still there. And I think that's an important thing that we should remember.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. How about the other Chris Fay? Any comment you'd like
Yeah.
to make?
I guess I would add this, because I don't think anyone's brought it up, but when I'm looking at the rendering here that's up on the screen, and all I can see is a 2-car garage with that, what I refer to as that weird room above the garage that nobody quite knows what to do with, perhaps, but you have to have it nowadays. And so to me, I lose the house. I'm fine with the windows. We talked early on about, or the architect talked about the door missing, but we don't appear to be moving towards replacing the door. I think I heard something about like everything's oriented towards the back. And I think we've had this discussion a lot in my years on the commission, which is trying to balance the needs of, let's say, a modern family. And I think Biff brought that up earlier with the need for mudrooms and yoga and stuff like that. And and that's not really our charge. I'm not really concerned about whether or not people have the modern conveniences that they need or think they need. I think our charge is to make sure that historic structures are taken care of. And I think for me, you lose the house. I can see, I'm on Google Maps, take out the bay window. I have no problem with that. Take out the side door. I have no problem with that. Take out the back door. I have no problem with that. That is a 70s thing. And I'm not interested in preserving the 1970s. But I'm not sure I'm into remove those things because it bastardized the house, but replace it with, for me, a sort of 21st century update that loses the historic house. And that's what I see. I see California. I see, as Biff said, I think dark windows. I see I got to have it. Otherwise, I can't live here type of thing. So I'm not interested in that personally. So
okay,
a lot of us live in old houses and we don't have garages and I don't have indoor plumbing. So
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I hope so.
Ooh, thank God.
If everybody's awake, I got to check my students every once in a while, make sure they're awake. So,
well, whoever lived in this house I'm in right now didn't have indoor plumbing for about
we're okay
almost
with indoor
years.
plumbing, but I think for me, you got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah,
somewhere between indoor plumbing and yoga studios.
All right. Well, I think
you hit on the point there that I was trying to make, is just that massing, and what I'm seeing is a 2-car garage and something that feels like it could be somewhere else and doesn't feel like the original house at all. I think that was my gut reaction. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Biff. Say that again for me.
Yeah. So just the overall massing of it, right? So you get the sense of this very large house. There's a lot of stuff going on in it, which is not at all what this house ever was, right? And yeah, it does not feel a place, and feels like, let's get as much stuff into this property to make us feel comfortable, which I completely understand you were saying, but I feel like our job here is to say, well, that's not what this house was meant to be. That's not what this structure is about, right?
Okay.
Can I just add one more thing, Glenn, to sort of echo that?
Sure.
I think there are some houses like this in its original form that the lack of special details actually makes them interesting to me. Because I think, as Biff said, this is a worker's house. I saw it as a, maybe not an old farmhouse, but that sort of style. I'm not an architect, but the idea that there's not special sort of things, everything isn't on High Street, I think that actually makes it interesting from my perspective. It is a common man's house.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. All right. Well, this house does present some interesting problems for us as a committee. I decided to drive by there today to take a look in person, because you can get a better feel when you're actually there on the street and taking a look. So I, drove by there, and this rendering is a lot like several of the houses that are already in the neighborhood today. Obviously, they were not there 50 years ago. Most of them look like they were put in over the past 20 years or so. The way I see it is, you've got this. I think there are quite a number of houses built around that period that have that basic for lack of any particular term, Victorian / Italianate style. And this one, I mean, it doesn't even have, usually they at least have a couple of brackets on this, didn't have that.
Right.
We know, and it's been heavily modified, but the only thing, and even the proportions of the structure are there, but the fenestration has been really badly mauled. All right, so and if you go by the house today, you'll see that you could tell what it was if you know your architectural history and so on, as you folks all do. And so you could see clearly what this house has gone through over the past 100 years or so. And then, so when I look at this rendering, I say, okay, I still see at first I didn't see the old house. I'm not sure if this rendering was added at some point. When I was just looking at the plans and elevations, it actually took me a while to figure out, especially when you're looking at the elevation of that, I guess it's the west view, the view from Chapel Street, because it's flattened, it was hard to see exactly what was going on there. The rendering makes it a little more clear. And I think that if this rendering had been drawn from the other side, like looking up Chapel Street instead of down,
Right.
that
Right.
that garage would not seem to loom quite so large or even head on. I think I heard John Sava say, right.
You're right. No question about it. But, there will also be trees that we're taking a tree out. And
Yeah.
we've been told we have to put another tree in. So,
Yeah. So what I was left with was, okay, we're almost in the same place in that anyone who knows their Newburyport house inventory history and so on sees, oh, there was an old 1850s-ish house that someone has built, has updated with this addition to the side to make it quasi-contemporary. I've even started to warm slightly to the metal roof. I understand. I think that is going to be a more and more popular thing even in this neck of the woods. I have up in other more northerly New England states, they're quite common, but it is a little bit out of character here. But I think over the next 50 years, they'll probably see more common, but that's beside the point. I think overall, where it eventually came down was, well, at least the old structure is still there. You can still see it. It's not quite the same, but it's actually probably less bastardized now than it in this proposal than it is existing right now on the ground. So that's kind of where I came down on it. I totally understand that with a lot of new home buyers in this neighborhood, they are expecting to have a nice master suite with the ensuite bathroom and lots of room and so forth. And these old houses simply do not provide that.
right.
And they do have a fairly large lot, so they've got the room to do this kind of expansion there. So it will end up anyway. I don't want to drag this on forever because we have a big agenda, but that's kind of where I not fell down, but came down on it. All right, so we need to move on to a vote. So it is either the motion would, sorry, trying to get my headset comfortable here. The motion is would be that the house is preferably preserved. A no vote means that there's no demolition delay and they may proceed. A yes vote means there's an imposition of a 12-month demo delay for either plans to be modified or changed or reviewed or whatever. If that motion does pass and it's preferably preserved, I would suggest I would ask for a vote on whether or not the plans as submitted tonight are acceptable. And if that passes, then the owners can proceed with these plans. If it fails, we can discuss, why, and typically we would owe it to the owners and the architect to give them some feedback as to what they might do to make a more acceptable plan if it doesn't pass. So is there a motion that the house is preferably preserved?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that the house is preferably preserved.
Hang on a second
That's
here.
Chris. Right?
Yep. Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, it sounded like Biff, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Give me a second here to get my notes in order. This can come in handy. Okay, Andrew, your vote again.
I'm gonna
yep.
vote no. No.
It's okay.
Yeah.
1 second. Biff.
Yes.
Okay. Chris Fay.
Yes.
Okay. Joe Morgan.
No.
Okay. Chris Sautel.
I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay. So, and the chair. Let me see for a second. I will vote yes to give us a chance to take a vote on the, so that makes 1, 2, 3, 4 yes votes. So that passes. So we can have a vote on whether the, hang on a second here. The plans that have been submitted are acceptable as if or not. So let me make a motion. Here. Sorry about for some reason some of my notes are a little out of order here. I'll get it straight. Okay, so we've gone over, and actually we've discussed to some considerable degree our opinions and thoughts and reflections on the proposed plans. So is there a motion to accept the plans that have been presented tonight and lift a demo delay? A yes vote would mean that the house is being preferably preserved, but this particular demo plan is okay to proceed with. Is there a motion to accept the proposed plans?
I make a motion to accept the proposed plans, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there a seconded?
Second.
I didn't catch who that was.
That was Chris Sautel here.
Oh, Chris Sautel. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so the motion is to accept the plans as presented this evening. A yes vote means that they may proceed with they still need a ZBA approval, I believe, and of course, building permits and all that. So, Mr. Bernhardt, your vote.
Yes.
Okay, a yes vote means they can go forward. A no vote is there's a 12-month demo delay remains in place.
Right.
Biff Baus.
No.
Okay, Christopher Fay.
I'm a no.
Okay, Joe Morgan.
Yes.
Okay, Chris Sautel.
Yes.
Okay, the chair also is a yes. So let's see, that's 1, 2, 3. So you just squeaked by there, Mr. Sava.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate your time. I know it's was
It was tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough.
I appreciate, incidentally, I've been on boards too, and I do appreciate the energies and the time and the research that you do
Yep.
for this wonderful city that we have. And I spent 70 years here, so I try to do the best I can with these old houses with
Okay.
new clients.
Right. Yeah. Well, they live on in a slightly different guise, right? They evolve. And I think given that, I think you've done, I might not have done the same thing. A number of us might not have done exactly the same thing, but I think what you've come up with is kind of a reasonable compromise between making your client happy and keeping what we can of the historic fabric of that particular.
That was the intent. Thank you very
lot.
much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is also a demo delay hearing. It's for 31 Overlook Street. And I think I heard that Ben Taylor's going to be speaking, and there was a Michael Hebert. I know Ben is with, I believe you're with Mead Tellerman and I forget the last one.
That's all right. It's, Costa. Yeah.
Costa, that's it. And Michael Herbert, is that Hebert? Is that the owner or developer or
So yeah, that's their architect.
the architect?
Thank you,
Okay.
Chair. Yeah, so it's me tonight, just for the record. Ben Taylor, me Teller and Costa, 30 Green Street in Newburyport. Yeah, Michael Hebert, the architect for the project. We're here tonight on behalf of the owners of the property, Tucker and Haley McCarthy. And I'm sorry if you have anything else, Chair. I mean,
No. No, just that the similar thing I've already explained about. We don't have to go over the whole purpose of the demo delay thing. And I know you guys have done many of these, so you're familiar with the drill. We'll first take a look at the historical significance or not. So you can tell us what you know about why you guys think it either is or isn't historically significant, and we'll take a vote on that. So why don't you go ahead, Ben?
Okay, great. Yep. So if we go to the next slide, please, Caitlin. So I'll start off with obviously the historical overview. So we believe the structure was constructed in and about 1945, according to the assessor records. It's not listed in the district data sheets, and there's no Form B. We did research the chain of title, and it seems to confirm it was built in around 1945. The first deed out to a private party was in 1945. It just mentions the land. It doesn't mention the buildings thereon in the description. All the subsequent deeds do. You know, and there's some building permits of record that indicate, you know, some work was done to the structure. The first one that may be significant is 1983. There's nothing more in the description we were able to find other than, you know, contractor to alter or renovate the one family structure. It may have been the rear porch, it may have been the side entry, or it could have just been something internal, but that was the first indication that there's changes to the structure. And obviously the bigger one is the permit issued to the prior owners about a year ago, March 2022, to perform some pretty significant, not so much changes to the shape of the structure, but to, you know, reside the structure, install new windows, as well as do a lot of internal work on the structure. And the structure itself, it's classified or described as a Cape style home in the property record card. However, it's a pretty rudimentary structure. You know, I did go out to Plum Island last night and, you know, survey the neighborhood. There are some stronger Cape style homes. But with that, I just have some slides showing the current condition of the structure, if we could move on. So this is the actual front elevation as it currently stands. Unfortunately, what ended up happening, or at least appears to have ended up happening, was the prior owners began work but didn't complete it. So again, the siding was removed. However, so the windows weren't replaced yet. Some of those are missing some parts or boarded up and you know, not in good condition. So go to the next slide, please. Again, so this is the left elevation. Again, kind of the same story with the windows, no siding. This is an actually slightly older picture from the building permit record. So that wire is actually on the ground now. If we go to the next slide, please. So here's another view of the left elevation. You can see, again, the wires on the ground now. Next slide, please. So this is going to the back of the structure. You can see that rear porch. We believe it was either screened in or enclosed at some point. If you actually look like closer at the windows, you can see kind of where some kind of screen or stone window may have gone in there. So go to the next slide, please. There's just another view of the rear elevation. Kind of just more square on. You can actually see the door frame on the left-hand side there, which also suggests at some point this was screened in. Next slide. And here's just the right side of the structure. Again, more of the same with the you know, condition of the ripped off siding and the windows in not so good shape. Go to the next slide, please. Just to take a quick peek under the house. Obviously, yeah, I'm thankful for Tucker for getting these photos and not having anything fall on his head or any wild animals attack. But as you can see, they still have the sonotube there with the concrete pylon. Pretty undersized, and it looks like there might even be some like wood blocks just sitting on top of them. The utilities are also not in good shape, with the rust there and even some water sitting on cinder blocks. Could you go to the next slide, please? Here's just more of the same, kind of a deeper view there. Again, just the wood sitting on top of the sonotube and some exposed wires. Next slide. Just more around the crawl space again with the wood, which I think is the intention was to block off some of the elements, but still it's right on the sand there. So next slide. Again, more just the exposure of the utilities, some insulation and wiring as well. So next slide. This is looking back out the way that we came, back towards I believe that would be the rear of the house. And then next slide. And finally, just one more view. You can see kind of either the house or the sonotube there isn't exactly level and really not in the best shape. As well as just the wiring, and I'm informed there's been some electrical work done, but not fully completed. And actually, just while we're on the subject, the house doesn't currently have indoor plumbing. All the interior plumbing and fixtures have been removed, so those aren't inside the house at the moment. So go to the next slide, please. So that's really all I have for the first part. I do enjoy doing the historical research for these applications, and unfortunately, I don't have much else here or much else story to tell. It's a about 78-year-old house, so it just about qualifies. Being over 75 years old, and obviously the current conditions unfortunate. So we feel in this instance it would be a structure that's either not historically significant and or not considered for preservation. But I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. We also have the architect on the call tonight as well. But that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask before we take a vote on the historical significance or not? It's awfully quiet out there. Okay. Is there, do I hear a motion that the structure is historically significant? In this particular case, someone could also make a motion that it is, well, yeah, no, sorry, forget that. A motion of that it's historically significant, a no vote would mean it is not. A yes vote would mean it is, similar to what we just went through with the first item. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that this house is historically significant.
Yeah, it sounded like Biff, right?
That's correct.
Thank you, Biff. Seconded? Someone?
Seconded. This is Joe.
Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, so Andrew Bernhardt, your vote on that?
Yes.
It is historically significant?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. Okay, Biff Baus?
No.
Okay. Chris Fay?
I'm a yes.
Okay. Joe Morgan?
No.
Okay. Chris Sawtelle?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. That would be, and the chair is also kind of a no on that. I think I can understand some of the rationale for voting yes, but I don't know. I'm just not seeing it on this particular one. Well, I'll refrain from commenting further because we do have a full agenda. Okay, so Ben, I think you know what that means. If it's not historically significant, the result is that your next step is to go to any additional relief, zoning relief or whatever before proceeding. But as far as the Historical Commission is concerned, your visit here is over. You there?
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Have a good night. I know I was muted. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Ben. All right, thank you. Okay, so that failed. Okay, Now we have several interesting items, a little unusual. Under the general business category, the first one is the review of a proposed preservation restriction for 64 Federal Street. So if you saw all the materials on this, the gist of what's going on is that the owners of the house would like to impose a preservation restriction on the property, which will cover both interior and exterior. It would not be held by the city or the historical commission. It would be between the grantor or the owners. The grantee would be the Historic New England, and I believe there's someone from Historic New England to speak to us about it tonight. Now, in order for this preservation restriction to be perpetual, it needs to be approved by the Newburyport City Council. So the Historic New England would like to tell this commission what they intend to do and get our support so that when they go before the city council, they have that support of this commission to bolster that particular application. So without further ado, let's see, is it Dylan Peacock? Are you here?
Yes, thank you so much, Glenn. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do hear you. Thanks. So you're going to go through this presentation?
Yes, and I'll try to be quick. I know you've had a full agenda tonight.
Okay,
and I just wanted to ask quickly, Caitlin, I a little while ago sent you an updated version of the PDF of the presentation. I had thought I was going to be able to screen share, and I sent you a revised one when I realized I wasn't. Is it possible to bring that up? If not, this will be fine.
I don't have that at the moment. Is there anything that
It's okay. It was just a few updated or different photos. Thank you all for letting me speak. I'm Dylan Peacock, Senior Preservation Services Manager at Historic New England. Some of you might already be familiar with Historic New England. We are a nonprofit preservation organization created in 1910. We're the oldest, largest, and most comprehensive regional heritage organization in the country. And we have 38 publicly accessible museum sites across New England, including a number right nearby, such as the Dole Little House, the Coffin House, and the Sweat Ilsey House, all on High Road in Newbury, and the Spencer Pierce Little Farm on Little's Lane in Newbury. We also operate a nationally recognized preservation easement program to protect privately owned historic homes, which is why we're here today. Next slide, please.
Pardon the interruption, Dylan. Did you folks, is it also Historic New England that did the other house on High Street?
Yes.
A year or two ago?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Exactly, yeah. So we, the easement program currently protects 120 properties across 5 New England states, including 3 neighboring Newbury, the Short House, the Ferry House, and the Seddon Tavern. Next slide, please. And we also protect a house right here in Newburyport, the Thomas Emery House on High Street. And next slide, please. So tonight I am here to ask the Newburyport Historical Commission to vote to recommend approval of preservation restrictions on the Daniel Plummer House at 64 Federal Street to the Mayor and City Council. The Plummer House is a lovingly restored Georgian-style home that may date to the 1730s, based on architectural evidence, which architectural historian Abbott Lowell Cummings noted showed early 18th century construction details in the framing, and also an earlier fireplace between a later late 18th century fireplace. However, there's no written record of the house until later in the century. Daniel Plummer, a joiner and chocolate maker, purchased the property after it was subdivided in 1766. And it's suspected that the house was possibly either constructed or expanded around the time of his marriage to Jane Somerby in 1771. Next slide, please. Attached to the rear is another circa 1750 gambrel roof structure that faces onto Temple Street and has historically had a separate address of 53 Temple Street. Next. Third brick addition to the house was added to the other end of the rear elevation after the Great Fire of 1811 by Edmund Sweat, who operated a rope walk across the street. The Daniel Plummer House is a contributing property to the Newburyport Historic District and is listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. The current owners, Thomas and Linda Coulter-John, are seeking to protect this well-preserved historic property by donating a preservation restriction on it, which will be held and administered by Historic New England. Under the restrictions, all the significant architectural features of the Plummer House will be protected against alteration, neglect, and demolition, whether or not they're visible from the public right-of-way. Next slide, please. The restrictions will also protect important interior features, such as the room configuration, framing members, plaster walls and ceilings, woodwork, flooring, and banisters, and even the iron hook that's hanging that historic fire pail in the front entry hall there. Next slide, please. We'll also be protecting fireplace surrounds, fireboxes, hearths, as you can see here with the great wall paneling and the shelving in the cupboard here. Next slide, please. A slightly later firebox and another parlor. Again, the similar protections in all of these spaces of the plaster, the woodwork, wainscoting, fireplace surrounds, hearths, floorboards, all of that. Next slide. We're also protecting door hardware, window hardware. You can see this great box lock to the left of the photo in this photo in one of the bed chambers. Next slide. Okay, all right, so this was the, the last one on this presentation. And we're also protecting timber framing in all areas of the house. These protections will apply at the principal spaces at the interior of the first and second stories, while retaining flexibility at the rear L, the kitchen, all bathrooms, and the attic, so that these spaces can be updated and adapted to modern living standards, along with all of the systems, utilities, electric, etc. Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 184, Section 32, requires approval at the state and local level for a preservation restriction to be perpetually binding. The state, through the Massachusetts Historical Commission, has already reviewed this document and provided preliminary approval. And now we're here seeking support from the Historic Commission for approval at the local, to recommend approval at the local level to your city council. All responsibility for enforcement is to be assumed by Historic New England, with no liability on the part of the city. And just in closing, Tom and Linda have been really excellent stewards of this property for many, many decades now. And their donation of a preservation restriction is a wonderful benefit to future generations, so that these historic interiors are protected. So thank you all for having me here to present, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dylan. Could you went through kind of quickly, what are the areas where updates and changes are allowed? Could you go with those areas again?
Yeah, sure. Changes and updates, things like that are allowed at, there's a rear L off of the back of the house. If you go to the that photo right there. So you can see the kind of boxy L at the back. The attic could be finished potentially into additional living space. And then there are obviously bathrooms in the house, so those spaces are exempt from protections. And the kitchen is mostly exempt. There is a historic fireplace in the kitchen with associated paneling that we're protecting, but otherwise future owners would be able to update the kitchen to their style and desire.
Okay. And so right now the attic, and even in the old part of the house, that third floor there, that's not finished?
There is one finished room that we have some limited protections in, but the other spaces, there's and one of the photos that was going to be in here had some of the unfinished spaces with the structural members, and then there's some spaces that have plaster that's in less good condition, so that could potentially be refinished, but overall the attic could be turned into living space.
Okay, thank you. So
You're welcome.
I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners. So, well, actually, before I do that, I noticed Tom Coulter-John is in the attendees list. Tom, did you want to say anything, or are you content to remain quiet? I take that up. I see. Yeah. All right. Well, technically, would there? Yeah. Okay, Tom, I see your hand is up now. So, and it looks like your audio is enabled. So, if you want to make a comment, why don't you go ahead and do that now? Yeah, Tom, we're not hearing anything. You there? quiet. Hmm. All right. Can you try, Caitlin, could you try also unmuting Stephanie? Maybe she, I know, Stephanie, did you have a comment to make on this? I know you're, I just happen to know that you're friends with the owners there, and if Tom's audio doesn't seem to be coming through. Did you have any comment to make on this?
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do hear you.
Thank you. So this is, as you noted, this is like the Ken Widmer's preservation restriction in 2020. It is a gift to the public.
Mhm.
It is for a house like this, which has been lovingly restored inside and out, to be preserved for future generations at the expense of the owners and not of the city, is truly a gift. And so I hope that the Historic Commission will recommend it to the City Council. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So Tom, I don't know what the problem is with the audio. Not sure if you want to try an alternate method, but in the meantime, I'll see if any of my fellow commissioners have any questions for either Dylan or anyone. And I do see Joe Morgan has a hand up. Did Joe comment or question?
Yeah, thanks. I just curious about the comment that Mr. Peacock made relative to the kitchen. The kitchen is excluded. It seems that sometimes the kitchens in some of these old houses are some of the most interesting places. And I'm wondering, clearly the house is to remain inhabitable, even while it's under the protection of Historic New England and open to the public. But I assume that's the case. I'm just wondering, what does the kitchen, does it have any old historical features that might be of interest to be preserved, such as firebox configuration or ovens or ironmongery or anything that might be of interest for preservation?
Hi, Joe. Thanks for your question. So typically we fully exempt kitchens and bathroom spaces from our restrictions because it's something that, the house it's a home and not a museum. So that, like our museum properties, we protect kitchens and houses. It can really sometimes work against the preservation of the house if you're too restrictive with the document. It can make it difficult to sell and be inhabited by future owners. But that being said, while we normally fully exempt kitchens, Tom and Linda did want to protect, because the only thing that's original in the kitchen is an existing firebox with paneling surrounding it. And that is, so the kitchen space is exempted, but then further in the document, it calls out that specific wall as being protected. The remainder of the kitchen was all redone by Tom and Linda within the past 20, 30 years, and they did a very nice job, but none of the rest of the kitchen is historic. It just looks nice. So we're only protecting the actual historic remaining features in the kitchen, which are a firebox and a paneled wall around the firebox.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question, Joe. But I think just to semi-repeat what Dylan's saying, just so we're all clear on this, the Historic New England is not going to own this. It's not a house museum. It will continue to be, and correct me if any of this is wrong, Dylan, it will continue to be occupied by these owners or subsequent owners who will also be bound by the same preservation restrictions. So it's really a preservation easement, I believe you referred to it, which is kind of what it is. It's not, it's just guaranteeing that some of these historical features are protected from being removed or demolished or changed in a material way. I was looking through, I got Exhibit B up on my computer as well as the Zoom meeting, so I'm looking to see, there's one that's labeled rear L northwest parlor looking east, and I'm suspecting that perhaps that might be the kitchen. Looks like there's a kitchen fireplace with an oven in that room. I'm not sure if that's the one that you're calling
Is
the
that
kitchen
the
or not.
yellow?
Oh, here it is. No, I see it now. Page 37 of Exhibit B, it's the rear L kitchen looking south, and there you can see actually somewhat smaller fireplace, but a fireplace with an oven. And I see what you mean. There is some paneling around that fireplace. It doesn't show the other side of that, but
Yeah, exactly. So on the bottom there, that fireplace, associated bake oven, and that paneling above and around it is all
Right.
protected.
Okay. All right. Any other comments by the group here?
Glenn,
yeah.
I would just like to publicly say thank you to the Coulter Johns for doing this, as Stephanie said, but on behalf of myself and maybe other commissioners, this is really a gift. We know how important and the work that Tom and his wife have done for the city over the years too. So thank you.
Yes, I would certainly second that, Chris. You do speak for more than just yourself in that comment. Biff, I see your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think I'll exactly echo that. I think this is what we're here for. To take these buildings and to keep them going for future generations, and to see an owner, give this up is big. And what we were talking earlier, about what I had mentioned. It's like, if you don't like the layout of these homes, then maybe this isn't the home for you. And to see people committed to keeping as much of these original features there, I think is extremely important. And I think this is a great gift, and something that I hope that more of these homes we can get this sort of production on, because this is the stuff that I think a lot of us wish we could have some input on, especially on the inside of these homes, and the overall layout. That so this is great.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you.
it.
And you've sort of touched on this, Biff, but just excuse me, but that it's as you probably all know, our legal jurisdiction is only exterior, so that it's quite possible, and often happens actually, that you'll have a house that is on the outside looks like a lovely old antique house, but as soon as you step through the door, it's got like some open plan, totally redone thing, with stainless steel appliances and marble counters and all that stuff. And I won't go on. Anyway, so I'm not Dylan, what's your preferred outcome here? Were you looking to get like a memo or something from the commissions addressed to either Historic New England or to the city council that we're in support of the application?
Yes, exactly. Very essentially exactly what the historical commission did back in 2020 with the Emery House. A memo to the city council mayor saying that you're in full support of this, and that you recommend that they also approve this restriction so that it is perpetual.
Okay. All right, then I think what we can do, based on what we've done in the past, is have a motion to authorize the chair to write a memo in support of the application, as we just described. Would someone care to make that motion?
I make the motion that proposals written for the city.
Okay, and
Supporting.
is that seconded?
I can second that.
Okay, it was Andrew and Biff, I believe, right?
Yep.
Okay, Andrew, your vote?
Yes.
Okay, Biff?
Yes.
Okay, Chris Fay?
Yes.
Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Chris Sautel?
That's a very happy yes to that vote.
Okay, chair agrees too. All right, what's your time frame for this, Dylan? Are you in a big hurry? Is it okay if this?
Yeah, I mean, if as soon as you can, but it's not like there's something imminent coming up that it needs to be done tomorrow.
Okay. So. I'll get your contact information from Caitlin. I think I already have contact information for Mr. Coulter-John, so I'm sure we'll be able to get a hold of you folks, and we should be able to do that in the quite near future. I'd say just give it a few days.
Wonderful. Yeah, that should give me enough time to get on hopefully the city council agenda for the 10th or 24th. So.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, good luck with it. And once again, if they're listening, the Colter Johns, Linda and Tom, I know them as Linda Miller and Tom Colter John. They have our
No.
wholehearted thanks and appreciation for doing this. I'm sure, I don't have no idea what it costs, but this is cost not only current costs, but future costs and all the work that they do elsewhere with the Preservation Trust for the city. So you're much appreciated. All right, moving right along. There is a request for what they're calling a minor modification for 182 Merrimack Street. Those of you who were there that day might recall this review. This is a structure, was at one point was a 2.5 or 3-story, I guess you'd call it, federal period structure, been very heavily modified over many years, has been most recently rental apartments. I don't know, probably about I don't know, 6 or more of those, and I believe it's I forget the name. Sorry, I forget the name of the applicant. I know I've got the name Chris Crump. Are you going to be speaking on this?
Yes, sir.
Are you the owner or the architect or?
Architect / representative.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Crump. So anyway, they're given the approval to do to renovate this place, actually kind of improving it quite a bit in the process. There was some alterations to the roof, and why don't I let you explain, Mr. Crump, what happened. Is it sounds like when they got into some of the upper story structure, there was some issues, and now they want to do a little more carpentering of the roof than originally thought. So why don't you explain what's going on and what you need to do?
Thank you, Chairperson. So basically, it's just that. Basically, as we have been starting to dissect the inside of the building or peel away the interior skin of the building to the structure, we found that there are a number of pieces of the post and beam that have been compromised. There was a fire at one point in the building. There has also been chimneys that were originally in the building that they just cut through the middle of the main structural beams that go through the building, and which has also compromised a little bit in the structure of the house, of the building, the overall building of itself. There is a beam that goes around the perimeter of the eave line that has had insect damage as well as dry rot in many places. In many places it needs to be replaced. I'm sorry.
No, I think someone just coughed.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. In looking at it all, we're not looking to change. We're trying to not change anything of it as best we can, and we are taking apart the pieces that need to be replaced and putting them back as best we can, exactly as they are, but with a little bit more modern day lumber pieces. But in doing so, the way that we need to fasten and adjust, we're going to try and work around it, but we want to have a little bit of a safety net just in case if we have to readjust and assemble the top plate and the top beam and so forth on the structure for the roof line and the eave line. It may create the roof line to have to increase the height by about 12 inches or so, around 12 inches. Hopefully that would be the max, but we're guesstimating that will be about 12 inches or so that we might need to raise the roof line in order to make it work structurally and with today's framing structures, as well as the integrity and strength of the structure to make it sound. So everything on the building that we had previously approved is still, is still going to be the exact same. The only thing that will change is there'll be a slight change, might be a slight change in the pitch of the roof. And the overall height of the ridge will be up to about 12 inches taller. They would, if we cannot resolve the issues in regards to the post and beams and the existing rafters that are in there that have been compromised too much, then we would have to take off the roof and replace it, but we would put it back in the same exact height and shape and eave line that is there now. But as I said, it may have to increase by about 12 inches in order to make it work with the existing framing structure that's there, post and beam structure that's there.
All right, so let me see if I understand this. It sounds like, there's some damaged or compromised, structurally compromised framing, but it sounds like it's not precisely determined exactly what the ultimate solution is going to be and where that's going to make the ridge line, that's the peak of the roof, where that's going to end up. Am I correct so far?
Yes, correct. And
Okay.
we're playing worst case scenario that if we have to take off the roof in order to make it structurally sound, that the only thing that would change is a slight change in pitch of the roof, and the ridge line would go up approximately 12 inches, up to 12 inches. We're going to keep it as low and to the exact ridge line that is now, but we didn't want to come across this and start ripping off the roof and then have everybody freaking out like, whoa, what's going on? So
Right.
We wanted to jump ahead of the gun and make sure that we're covered just in case.
Yeah, well, it was wise and legally correct of you to do that, because there's, as you may know, should know, contractors have gotten afoul of the city by going beyond what their original, plans called for.
Yes, and just to be clear, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the owner, who is the contractor himself, has been very adamant about making sure that we go by all required channels to make sure that we get everything approved prior to do anything before approvals are made, and he's going above and beyond to make sure that this is done as best as it can be, incorporating the existing structure as best as it can, but at the same time making it sound and safe, structurally sound and safe for the whole building. So I've been very impressed with the amount of effort and energy and money that he's put into this building already.
Okay. All right, I know I've got a couple questions. So the eave height, that's the well, we just make sure we're all on the same page. The eave is the line that goes kind of completes the rectangle of the facade immediately above the third floor. Exactly. Yeah, Caitlin just drew her cursor across it. So that is not, the height of that is not changing.
Correct.
Okay. And we don't know exactly how much the ridge, which is the top part there, and I see you've drawn a dotted line from the illustrating that the possible increase in height of the ridge, correct?
Correct.
But the exact amount isn't known. And as best as can be determined on this drawing, it appears that the pitch is, if it's changed, it's only slight, and the position of the dormer is the same. Is that correct?
Everything that was approved last time is not changing at all. We're not adding anything new or changing anything else other than the slight change in pitch and the ridge, the total top ridge.
Okay. No roof deck. I was kidding.
No.
Okay. One last question, then I'll ask if my partners here have any questions. Is either a member of the organization that's doing this work or qualified from an engineering point of view, or have you called in an engineering firm to take a look? So what was that? Can you tell us what the status of that is?
So John O'Connell is is the structural engineer currently working with us on this plan. He's in the middle of trying to figure out solutions for mitigating the issues in regards to the top post or top plate beam that goes around the perimeter of the building. So we're trying to find and see what is the best one that will keep this as close to what the existing ridge and pitch are. But again, we just want to be safe and make sure we have our ground covered just in case.
Yep. Okay. All right. So, Caitlin, is the actual request for the minor modification posted? I'm just going to take a quick look right now. Here it is, request for minor modification. I just want to see exactly what it says while I'm looking at, while I have it here. So it says, like apply for minor adjustment to already approved file, blah, blah, blah. And it says in the request that I just wanted to see if it spelled this out, that the eave line would remain the same and it would remain hip roof, but it could go up from approximately 6 to 12 inches. All right, so that is spelled out in the letter there. So my friends on the commission, any questions for Mr. Crump? Not hearing anything. Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay.
My feeling is that we should know exactly what it is. And it sounds like the answer to that is imminent. We just need to have the structural engineer submit a report or some sort of an analysis, or just, I don't know. I don't know why it should be open-ended. Either it's 6 inches or it's 12 inches or it's more, or it's none, but we should know. That's all.
Yes. Can you talk to Chris? Is there some very compelling reason why it can't be more defined than it does? I see Joe's point. It is a little bit kind of, it's not nailed down, put it that way.
Understood. Basically what we're trying to do is some of the beams that go, the perimeter beams that go around the top of the house, like I said, are some of them are compromised. Also, some of the rafters that go up to the ridge are compromised, and if we have to replace them, then the sizing of some of the joists, in order to meet the structural loads that have to go up there, they will be oversized, well, I shouldn't say oversized, but they'll be a lot larger than the ones that are currently there, of the post and beams that are there now, in order to meet the structural loads of the current building codes. So if it has to be, and so we're trying to figure out how question one is how to assemble it, if we can, to the existing top plate beams of the structure. And what's the best way to fasten them to them, and two, if it can be done, if we have to add another top plate to the beam, and in that case, what we did realize though is if we raise the pitch slightly, if we have to add a top plate to the top on top of the beam, then a little bit slighter, higher of a pitch will allow the eave line to stay at the same height, and in doing so, how does that create the pitch goes up to the how much height of a difference does it come up to the ridge? So there's it's kind of multifaceted, trying to figure out what we can, and in certain areas we can, it's because in certain areas we might be able to do that, in other areas we can't, and we're trying to see if we can possibly keep a good portion of the existing roof intact, or if it's just not possible to have that same detail go all the way around for all portions of the deficiencies that are in the roof now, and then we just have to take it off and then put it back up. If that helps clarify anything, or I mean, I can go in there and say, okay, it's going to be a foot. I can say, okay, let's we're looking to get approval to raise it a foot, and if we can get it a little bit under, great, but we're going to ask for approval to have it for a raise of 1 foot on the roof line, and hopefully we can make it better.
Yeah, the impression I get, Chris, is that I'm sorry, you're not Chris. You are. Oh, you are Chris. There got a lot of Chris's here tonight. That you want to kind of play by the rules to come to before you get too far into the demolition. That you don't run afoul of any city boards or rules or whatever, because there have been cases where and it often happens as you get into some of these old structures, you find, oh, there's a little bit of rot, you start chasing it down, and it turns out there was more rot than you realized, and then I'm sure you know the drill. So and we know we're familiar with that, right? So first of all, I appreciate the fact that you're stopped, took the time to come talk to the city first rather than diving in. So basically, it's almost like, okay, yeah, yeah, I sympathize with, I agree with Joe in the sense that you should know, but you don't know until you get in there, I guess. So I'm wondering if, let's see, if is Andy still with us? If we can say, that we're that
Chair, can I
yeah,
just clarify?
sure.
I think that the design team should have a very clear idea of what the existing conditions there are, the existing structure. It all sounds very fascinating. It sounds like a wonderful problem to have to solve, but I think that they ought to proceed to solve it. And I think that getting the engineer on site and analyzing the problem, doing an inspection to understand what structural elements are compromised, understanding where their margins are for trying to maintain the existing height of the roof is. They may need some steel, they may need to do something to skinny up the structure, but I would say if they can, the existing profile of the roof should be preserved. Now, if a professional engineer, a structural engineer, after having done his or her analysis says, no, for certain reasons, we really want to maintain a wood structure, it's going to require that the entire timber structure be removed because it's unstable, it's failing, et cetera, okay, fine. But I'm just hearing there's just way too many conditions placed on the whole thing. I think if you really don't know what's going on up there, you find out what's going on and come back and tell us.
Yeah, what I'm leaning towards, and it sounds like you're hinting at the same thing, Joe, is to basically give them the okay to do that exploratory, demo or partial demo to see to determine what's required or not. And you know what I mean? Because probably where we are right now is that their initial demolition plan did not include any that roof or attic demolition that they're looking at having to do. Chris, do you have a good idea of how much demo is going to be required before Mr. O'Connell can determine exactly what's going to be required?
Just a little bit more, I think. We're trying to get ahead of the curve, so that we can go full steam when we do have the answer. But if we have to come back and get another approval, then we have to find out what's going on and then wait another 2 weeks. And so we were trying to get everything ready to go before we actually have to go. So we don't have any roadblocks or delays moving forward.
Right.
So
yeah, well, I understand, but I'm getting but I do have painful memories of things that kind of got out of control. So while on the one hand, I hate to inconvenience you. I know, scheduling with these things is always, difficult. But I think I agree with Joe that that we really should have and require a bit more certainty as to exactly what's going to be required, and the fact that you've come in and explained the situation, I think as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if the rest we'll have to see if Gregory Earls, the building commissioner, and so on would agree and so on. But we can certainly talk to him, say that look, they've talked to us. I don't know what your initial scope of demolition said exactly, but that you got the okay to do the what's it called, the work, the exploration work that you have to do in order to figure out how to make the structure sound. And
may I interject for a moment, please?
Yeah, who's speaking?
This is Anthony Bonacorso. I am the owner of the property.
Sure, Andy.
I appreciate your time and all the comments, and it's been very, very helpful. As Chris explained in the beginning, I'm faced with, I have 2 to 3 options right now of how to proceed. We can try to, we have consulted with a structural engineer too, as a matter of fact, If we try to salvage what is there now, we would end up trying to enforce a compromised structure, which ideally long-term may not be the best option. If we try to fix it properly, we have possibly two different options. If in the options that we would have is the structural members that we would have to size up to get the proper hip ridges in place, along with the rafter and the ridges at the top of the building. Depending on what materials we use could alter the height slightly. The engineer is positioned as is Chris, to decide and determine if we are allowed to go up a few inches, the structural members may change, be stronger, allow us to meet the energy codes and all the roof loads and snow loads that we have to meet. So if we were to propose and come forward and say, are we allowed to raise the ridge by up to 12 inches, then we would design the roof in order to accommodate that. If we are not, then it would be it's a different structure. So looking now with the current roof, I am inclined to replace and remove the entire roof system as it is, because I'm not feeling that long term it would be the best to leave it in its current state. It could be modified and repaired, but I think again, with the amount of energy that I'm putting into the building, I would rather have something that is pristine and structurally safe as possible. As Chris explained before, the chimney systems that were in the building early on were also contributed to the structural support of the roof system. But since they have been, before I owned the building, but they have been removed, the roof is again in a position of it needs a little TLC, if you will. Also, we found that there was a fire, and in some areas the roof has been replaced. Structural members are compromised. So I'm in the camp of replacing the entire roof, do it properly, do it soundly, do it safely. And but by doing that, when you go back to build, we can design and try to incorporate the proper members. And the reality is, as Chris has explained, around the eave, the entire perimeter in some areas has to be replaced. And in order to maintain what's required now with current ridge beams that we would need, we can only cut so much of them before they become ineffective. So raising the roof up to 12 inches does change quite a bit from the actual construction and integrity of the roof line. So if it's something that you could approve, it would allow us to provide a much safer, stronger roof system. And again, the integrity and the overall look would remain the same. But right now it's barely a 6 pitch. And we would be going possibly from, if we went 12 inches higher, it might go from a 6 to close to a 7 pitch. So it's not altering that much, and it's not a steep roof whatsoever. So that is the circumstances we're faced with now about why we need to take this approach, because it does come down to how it gets engineered. Ideally, raising it up to 12 inches does help considerably on the structure itself.
Yep. Okay, while you were speaking, Anthony, I crafted a motion that I think would meet your requirements and quite possibly meet ours. I will ask my commission. So let me read it for my fellow commissioners, see if this sounds reasonable. And the motion would be to have a vote to approve the proposal to repair/replace the roof to conform with the original design, with the sole exception of the ridge height, which may be a maximum of 12 inches higher. By the original design there refers to the design that was approved when you got the okay from this commission, I don't know, a couple months ago. So fellow commissioners, did you hear that? And would you be amenable to taking a vote on that, or does that still leave people to, or we could just take a vote on that and see if it passes?
Is that not what they're proposing anyways? I mean,
yeah, it's just getting it with that wording I'm just hoping that the wording, which I think Mr. Bonacorso, does that wording work for you?
If we are allowed to replace the roof with the understanding that it could be as much as 12 inches higher, that would is totally acceptable.
Yeah, well, that's what it says. The expression I use is repair/replace the roof. So that gives you, either option. And but the part that we're concerned about is it conforms with the original design, with the only exception being, the ridge height, which can be up to 12 inches higher, which is what you said is what you really need to be able to work with.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so that's the motion. So would someone like, well,
I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
Or second
Okay,
that.
and I'll read
you-
it. That was Biff, right? I'll
Yes.
read it again, and then we'll see if there's a second. So I'll read it one more time. Approve the proposal to repair/replace the roof I should add of the structure. Hang on a second. Of the structure. Approve the proposal to repair/replace the roof of the structure to conform with the original design, with the sole exception of the ridge height, which may be a maximum of 12 inches higher.
And pitch, correct?
Well, the pitch is going to, you mean
That would
pitch being
change
the
slightly.
same or pitch being slightly changed?
Well, because that's what they're proposing, is the pitch would also change slightly.
Right.
If it goes up. So if we need to
So I've
include
got to
that.
incorporate that. So ridge height. All right, so I got to craft it. Well,
Chair, can I also ask that that any revised drawings be submitted to the building department for their record?
yes, I will add okay, first let me get the pitch. Is understood that the roof pitch may change slightly. And applicant shall submit final plans to planning office as soon as structural solution is determined. Okay, let's see how this sounds. Approve the proposal to repair/replace the roof of the structure to conform with the original design, with the sole exception of the ridge height, which may be a maximum of 12 inches higher. It is understood that the roof pitch may change slightly. Applicant shall submit final plans to the planning office as soon as the structural solution is determined.
Yep.
Does that sound reasonable? And so Biff, do you
Yes,
still support that motion? Okay,
Yeah.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I heard Joe, someone else I think was in there as well, but 1 second is enough. So we'll take a vote on that. Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oops, sorry. Okay, Biff? Baus?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Okay, Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Okay, Chris Sotell?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair is willing to go along with that as well. Okay, so so we're all clear. So this, I think, gives you some flexibility, Mr. Bonacorso, to get in there. But please do make sure you once you know what the solution is going to be, the extent of the rot or damage or whatever you've got to deal with, and your engineers helped you figure out, what the structural requirements are to meet the various, load requirements, everything you've talked about there, you can, I guess, either submit them to the planning office or the building commissioner, Greg Earls, would, I guess, want to see those. So he'll probably want to see them in any event. All right. First of all, thank you for coming in to review this with us and not just barging ahead as some people have done in the past. So we definitely appreciate that. And I hope that we're able to find a solution to this that's going to, work for you and the structure, and make it, keep it alive for many more years to come.
Well, I appreciate your support, and in all honesty, the last thing I really want to do is have to pay for a new roof, but I just think it's the right thing to do in this case. But your support has been and understanding has been greatly appreciated. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you to the board for your working with us and finding a solution to get this, approved or make you happy with it or comfortable with it. So I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Okay, so let's see if we can wrap up fairly expediently. But there are a couple of important things. One is you might have noticed on the agenda this thing called Boards and Commissions Information Session. This is the Mayor Sean Reardon has set up, wants to hold a info session, is what they're calling it, in the City Hall auditorium on May 4th. They want to set up tables for the various city boards and commissions so that citizens can come in, find out more about the commission, see if they want to be a member, just ask questions. What is this? What do you guys do? Whatever. So I'm planning to attend. And I'd like to, is anyone out there in a position to check their calendar and see if they can attend that night so we can, so I'm not all by myself up there?
What's the date again? I'm sorry.
The date is May 4th. It's a Thursday night, but it's the first Thursday in May. We do not, so there wouldn't be a historical commission meeting that night. And Mr. Sawtell, did I see you raising your hand?
Yes, you did. I'd be more than happy to join you, providing I don't get called into work. I'd be more than happy to come.
Okay. When you said providing, I was all set for you to say providing that they provide refreshments or something. And who knows, maybe they will.
There's refreshments? Oh, okay, I'll be there.
Andrew, I see you raising your hand.
Yes.
So I got, okay, this is great, Andrew.
I think I could do it as well.
Okay, excellent, Biff. Be a chance for us to meet. Did I don't know.
I don't think. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, very good. So we got a couple people there, and certainly it's not limited to us, 3 or 4. Anyone's welcome to come on down. You don't even have to stay the whole time if you don't want to. As long as I've got the floor here, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will anyway. Chris Sawtell, would you like to say anything to kind of introduce yourself to our team here? I'm glad to see you arranged for a very antique house looking background for your video feed.
My name is Chris Sawtell. Live over in Summer Street, number 29. I'm the one with the Tyvek all over the side of the house, trying to get it sided. I'm from Newburyport. I moved here in 1973. I went through the school system, and eventually now I'm in an old house myself. I was invited to join the Historic Commission when Malcolm stepped down. He's a friend of mine, and he asked me if I would be interested, and I had always had an interest in Newburyport, especially its architecture, as my mom and my dad had restored and renovated a lot of houses in Newburyport in the early 70s. So I kind of grew up with it, and I have a real passion for it. So I'm very excited to be here. So here we are. But I did have a question for Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew, did you grow up in Ipswich?
No.
Okay. Well, only because my mom's very interested in everything historical in Newburyport, and so she wants to know everything about what I'm doing. And she says, "Well, who are these other people on the board? Do they know as much as you do?" And I was showing her the names, and she says, "Oh, I think I recognize that name, Andrew Bernhardt from Ipswich." And I said, "Well, I'll ask him." So there it is.
Different.
Here we are.
Bernhardt, yes. Well, welcome aboard, Chris. Very happy to have you. And
Thank you.
and we may have an alternate coming over the next month or so. So we'll see how that goes. So there he is in person, so to speak, Chris Sawtell. So thanks for devoting your public service here, Chris. And again, the only other thing I'll just mention very briefly is that I am following up on 2 preservation restrictions. One is really kind of, the ball is in the court of the folks at 344 Merrimack Street. They just have to make a minor change to their PR to make sure that they've adequately described the preservation of the chimney structure, even within the house structure. Those of you who are around for that, I think most of you might recall that. So they'll take care of that. And we're working on 98 High Street. That's the Cushing house. We have to make some changes to that to make sure that besides the exterior being protected, the historical features of the interior, like molding and so forth, is also protected. They'll have the flexibility to do things like, paint walls, change wallpaper, move furniture around, etc. Because after all, it's not a living, it's not a domicile, it's a museum. So they need a certain amount of flexibility to change things around, but they can't, rip off molding and do stuff like that. So we just need to get that nailed down. So I'm working with Bethany, the director there, on that. So is Andy even still with us? Let's see. That scoundrel left. I don't see him so I guess there's no updates from the chair, from the planning director. The only thing remaining then, well, first let me ask, anyone have anything else before we approve the minutes? Now the approval of the minutes for the 9th of February, that'll be just Biff, Chris, Joe, and myself, because the other folks weren't here that day. Actually, why don't we take care of this? Is there one of you guys want to actually the chair will make a motion to approve the minutes of the 9th of February.
Okay, I'll
if you
second
have
that.
Any alterations, speak now. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Biff. Did anyone have any corrections or anything? If not, we'll just take a vote on the approval of the minutes. Not hearing anything. Biff, you vote on the approval of the minutes from the 9th?
Yes.
Okay. Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Joe?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the chair is okay with that. So we have the required 4 votes to pass that. So those minutes can be made final and published. Anything else before we adjourn? Anyone have any comments, questions? Quiet. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
Okay, thank you, Biff. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, I think that sounded like Mr. Fay.
Yep.
Okay. 1 second here. I almost feel like I can say by unanimous approval, like they do in the House.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? I hear none. Okay, I'm okay with that. That's the unanimous yes. So the meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you once again for your time and attention. We got through that at a pretty reasonable time, just a little after 9. So, but thank you very much, and I hope you all have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Good night.